Hey, welcome everybody to Homeschool Connect Expo. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for being a part of Homeschool Connect Expo and learning more about the homeschool world and all the really cool conversations and videos and speakers and exhibitors. So this is July 1st. This is their beginning part of our online language arts fair that we have all throughout July, on top of everything else that we do on a normal basis. And so during the month of July, we're going to be speaking with some people, some of our exhibitors and getting to know them a little bit more. So right now we have Amanda. We're going to bring her on and have her introduce herself and learn more about what she has here. So all right. Hey, Amanda, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks.
Well, good. I just was letting everybody know got links down below out to the exhibitor booth, and then that has links out to the website. Anybody that has any questions, submit your questions and we'll chat about them later on in the conversation. But before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know what you do?
Sure. So my name is Amanda Bush. I'm an academic language therapist. I've worked in public schools for over 12 years as a dyslexia therapist. I've done formal evaluations for dyslexia and other literacy-based learning issues. And my job is working with the Multisensory Reading Center. I see clients as an academic language therapist, so I teach students on all levels in the area of reading, but I also work with a lot of parents doing consultations, so free consultations, and talking to them about their struggles that their students or their children may be having, and then helping them determine if that sounds like dyslexia, if it sounds like a different learning issue like dysgraphia, and helping them come up with a plan with some possible either evaluations or services that we can provide to help them get on the right track and fill in those gaps.
Well, awesome. And we were talking earlier, before we started here, this is kind of near and dear to my heart, with one of my sons, my youngest one with dysgraphia. And it wasn't until I was having a conversation during one of the Homeschool Connect Expos did we even realize that was even a thing. I didn't even know, I was very ignorant in that part. The only thing I know about dyslexia, or I knew for a long time, was, the TV shows, the sitcoms. They would always have a character that would have dyslexia, and they would treat it almost like cancer. And it was like a really weird thing. You just didn't know really what it is. But and that's why I love getting to know more about exhibitors, because I know a lot of parents worry about, if they have a struggling learner, struggling reader, dyslexia, all these things, so I love that we have support for them. So how do you know if your child has dyslexia?
That's a great question. And that is one of my passions, is that whole consultation process with the student and parent outreach to talk to them about that. So some of the main characteristics, and we do have an informational video on our booth that talks more in depth about specific things to look for. But some of the main things are going to be difficulty reading words in isolation. So a lot of dyslexic students are super smart, and they use those context clues. So they are really expert guessers. So a way to isolate those skills and see what because they can kind of fake it till they make it. But we want to see if we just gave them unfamiliar words just by themselves without any context clues or any pictures to guess, are they able to use word attack strategies, put the sound with the symbol, with the letter, and then be able to scoop that together and put it all in order and identify the word. A lot of times we'll see that students can present and maybe like try to work through where it seems like they're maybe reading on grade level, but then when I pull out those words by themselves, they have difficulty. Another thing, definitely struggling with spelling. So it's all about what's called phonological processing. So it's this area in the back of the brain that deals with the symbols and the sounds and that automatic recall. And so when we see students with dyslexia, they, maybe early on had trouble learning the alphabet, like learning to actually identify the letter names and the sounds. And maybe it seemed unexpected. That's a huge part of the International Dyslexia Association's definition of dyslexia, is that these students are typically in the average to above average range for cognitive ability. So they really have academic assets and they're not struggling across everything. It's really that area of reading, writing, and spelling that is, way lower and kind of holding them back from their true academic potential. So like I said, spelling, we're going to see difficulty reading those words in isolation, difficulty reading nonsense words. So we don't want them just to memorize words. So if I gave them a nonsense word, for example, like RAL, R-A-L, I'd want to be able to see that they can function and use those strategies to identify the word, and they're not just relying on memorizing high frequency words. Finally, the last thing is just their overall oral reading fluency. Do they sound really choppy? Are they missing little words like on and the? And is their reading very slow? So for more information on that specific question, you'll want to check out that video at our booth.
Okay. All right. You had said something about struggling reading. How do you actually help someone that's a struggling reader?
So we have a lot of different options that we can go through when we do have those, free, personalized, individualized consultations with parents about helping their student. But one of our main ways is through a structured literacy therapy curriculum called Lexercise. And with Lexercise, we meet with students with a certified academic language therapist like myself, and then we meet with them for 45 minutes, and that's one time a week. We're individualizing our approach to their learning style, to where they're starting off, where their needs are. And then it's really important that they're doing their practice. We need way more repetition than average learners. So we say dyslexic learners or average learners might take maybe 500 repetitions to really cement a concept. And then a dyslexic learner might take 3 times that, 1,500 repetitions to really get that concept. So it's really important that they're doing that practice. We have a game style practice that's also accessible online, can be done on a computer or an iPad, but it's really important that they get that frequent repetition to build in and really rewire the brain to be able to read with automaticity. So Lexercise is going to be our main recommendation, but we'll certainly talk about other options in a parent consultation.
Okay. All right. I kind of jumped in with dyslexia and everything else, but you're with Multisensory Reading Center.
Yes.
What services do they provide?
Yeah, so we don't do just that. You don't have to have a formal dyslexia diagnosis. We can do the actual evaluations. So that might be something if we're seeing a lot of those characteristics. We can do a formal evaluation, and then you'd get an 8 to 10 page report with an actual diagnosis if it's appropriate. We also offer general tutoring. So maybe we're not as concerned about dyslexia intervention, but maybe we want to supplement some reading or written expression instruction. So we can cater just general tutoring once a week via webcam. We also do pre-reader support. So that's going to be, some of our younger students, maybe pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, or first, second grade that are not quite reading yet, but we want to be able to build in those strong foundations of phonological processing and decoding skills. And then we also are starting to do some smaller reading spelling inventories just for students and parents in the homeschool world that need to get an idea of where does my student stand compared to other students. So are they behind or are they struggling? So it's not going to be a formal evaluation with a diagnosis of a possible learning difference. It's just going to give the parent a better idea of where their child is. And then that's a great way to understand and get some recommendations as far as how to support them.
Okay. All right. The when you get into this and get into dyslexia and helping a child, how long does that take?
That's a great question. I get that all the time. And there's really no concrete set answer because we are going by a therapeutic model. It is structured literacy therapy. So when you think about any type of therapy, whether that's physical therapy or mental health therapy, everybody is different and they're going to process information differently, retain information, and they have a different level of skills and deficits. So I want to be realistic, that everybody's different, but, just to gauge if we were going to go through the whole structured literacy therapy curriculum for, say, Lexercise, you'd want to, budget in mind about 12 to 18 months to go through all of it. And then also keep in mind that dyslexia doesn't go away. So it is a neurologically based learning difference. And we can give students all of these coping strategies and really make some lasting changes and improvements. But it's really important to always be supporting a student. So even if they go through all of the Lexercise curriculum and they have really good solid strategies, we may also want to continue on with maybe a once weekly tutoring model, or even, bi-weekly, just to be able to check in and help with different skills like fluency or written expression. So overall, everyone's going to be different, but, really from start to finish, try to think about 12 to 18 months.
Okay. All right. And how do you measure the progress along the way?
So progress monitoring is huge. That's really important to us, especially with the Lexercise curriculum. So we always want to know, is what we're doing working for the student? How can we improve? We're always modifying and making adjustments to make sure that we're giving the best type of instruction and intervention for each student. So we do a baseline assessment with the Lexercise curriculum, and that's where we're seeing what the students, spelling is like, their automatic word recognition, their ability to decode words, and also their reading fluency. So we get a gauge with that. And then we will do a progress monitoring check-in. In the Lexercise curriculum, it's just built in that we will do a comparison at about 8 weeks to see, and that's just enough time for us to show some sort of cognitive change, but we do progress monitoring throughout as well.
Okay. All right. Now, kind of going through this and seeing this, do you have a special degree? What qualifications is there for someone who does this type of training or work?
That's a really good question. So I myself am, again, a CALT, C-A-L-T, so that's Certified Academic Language Therapist. So a lot of our academic language therapists do have that certification. On the Lexercise website, there is a page that'll go through all of the different acronyms and what that stands for and what their level of qualifications are. But anyone that you would be working with the Multisensory Reading Center is going to have specific experience with students with dyslexia. And so that's going to be different. It's not just a reading teacher or not just a teacher or even reading coach. It's really directed to structured literacy therapy. So we know all of the ins and outs, even on the social emotional level of students with learning differences like dyslexia and dysgraphia. And so it's just going to be more qualifications than a general education instructor, and they're going to be able to give the student and the parent, even more support and feedback than a general reading instructor.
Okay. All right. The and the age old question, they have to ask,
Mhm.
what's it cost? What's how much would something like this be to help
And
your kids?
that kind of goes back to even the therapeutic model, or just us. We really want to provide an individualized experience for every student. So a lot of our situations are going to require a free consultation with an academic language therapist like myself or my partner Jen, and that's where we can really, it's not really a one size fits all. We want to make sure that we're doing exactly what's right for your child. So that would be really where a consultation would come in, because there is some pricing that varies.
Okay. All right. And then, with if I want to have one of my kids involved or start the conversation, do I have to have an already diagnosis of dyslexia, or is there something you can help with that? Or how does that work? How do people get involved?
So you do not have to have a formal diagnosis or a formal evaluation. We offer that if that was something that was going to be helpful for you. But that's really, again, where that consultation comes in. So if I'm seeing that a student has so many, 9 out of 10 boxes checked for characteristics of dyslexia, then we know that a structured literacy therapy intervention is going to be effective for them, because they exhibit all of those characteristics, and that's what a dyslexic student, looks like, and they're going to respond well to that. So it's really the parent's choice, and we can talk about pros and cons if you want to go the evaluation route with us, or I can even give you, other options, but it is absolutely not required. We just want to make sure that we're doing what's going to be the right fit for the student, whether that's, a tutoring model, the pre-reader model, Lexercise, or a different structured literacy therapy intervention. So again, you do not need a formal diagnosis, and we can help direct you in that area of what's going to be the best programming for your child.
Okay. All right. The very good. I'm gonna share my screen here so we can I can show everybody what your booth looks like, because you have some really cool videos that kind of go through and just again, even PDFs, characteristics of dyslexia and how exercise works, and there are testimonials and people talking about even a parent testimonial on there, and the links out to the website, and the website's great. It has a ton of information on this, what you do, and how all kinds of cool things that you do throughout the year on here. Now, how long have you been doing this?
So I've been working with Multisensory Reading Center for over 4 years. And again, I've got that additional experience with public schools, but I really enjoy the one-on-one, working with students, and really that parent education piece that is just so valuable. Even if you don't end up using our services, we've had positive reviews just from our consultation process, and how that helped parents navigate and just figure out what to do on their own. So I just highly encourage you to set up a consultation, and there's links on that on our booth website. But setting up a consultation is really just that first step to knowing, does my child need additional support? What's going to be, the best option? But that's my true passion, is really the parent outreach piece.
Okay. The we do have a question. This is something that we were talking about, off air before this. How common is dyslexia?
That's a great question. I love that question. So it's way more common than people think. So according to the International Dyslexia Association, they say 1 in 10 people are affected by dyslexia. And it's on a spectrum. So you could have, very severe where they are having trouble decoding even the most simple word. Or it could be, moderate or not that severe where students have a lot of coping strategies. Again, they're using that guessing. So it doesn't really present itself until we start to take away some of these context clues. So sometimes you don't notice it until a student is struggling, with writing essays and their spelling. And then when we get to some higher level reading comprehension in maybe 5th and 6th grade. But I think the biggest thing with knowing how common dyslexia is, scheduling that consultation to be able to figure out, if there's even the slightest risk or even a family history, because we know it's hereditary. Early intervention is critical. We want to catch things when the gaps are smaller. That way we can fill in those gaps, especially for that social emotional aspect, because we don't want, like we were talking earlier, we don't want students to have that negative self-talk and, feel like they're dumb or that they're not capable of something. So, biggest takeaway is that it's way more common than you think, and it doesn't hurt to look into getting support, even if the gap is small.
Well, and I think that's the bottom line is that getting, that consultation, getting the consultation and kind of going through those steps. If you think there's even a possibility or something that might be there, because there's, like you said, it's a spectrum, and it might not be exactly. I everything I knew about dyslexia for the longest time was on a sitcom, and and it was just kind of like jumbled words, and that's all I knew. I mean that's such a simplistic thought of what dyslexia is, and then to hear how common it is.
Right.
There's no need to kind of hide there, this, and this is something that, working with your group, the child can kind of go through that process and get that training and those exercises, so that's amazing. That's what you've are doing, and that help that with the child with the dyslexia, or helping the parent, and it was struggles. I was struggling with my youngest, and we didn't have to, and it was just because of my ignorance of not knowing exactly, and then not knowing really who to reach out to figure out what was wrong, or what was going on, and maybe that that thought of I didn't realize just how 1 out of 10. I didn't realize just how many people that struggle with this. So and that's why I love having these conversations, because hopefully someone, it might not be their child, it might be someone that they were just talking to, to get the information out and let them know that, hey, this is common, or this is, go check this out, go set an appointment, get something started, at least go through and start the conversation.
I think you mentioned a good point too, that you said that you were struggling and we didn't necessarily have to struggle that much. So there is so much research, and that's what structured literacy therapy is. It's research-based reading intervention. So we know how to help students that struggle with reading and that have characteristics of dyslexia or have diagnosed dyslexia. We know how to do that based on actual brain research. They have actually done an MRI of a brain, and then you can see where that back area of the brain that I mentioned with phonological processing is actually weaker. And then after a certain length of time of consistent structured literacy therapy, they saw a physical change in the brain from the intervention. So you're right. There's no reason why we should have to struggle or maybe back in the day when they didn't have that type of research, but now we know so much more about reading intervention and what students, with dyslexia actually need. So that's why it's really important to get that early intervention so we can actually make that physical change in the brain.
Okay. Well, everybody that's watching this, whether it be throughout July, or even afterwards, click on the links, go out to the exhibitor booth, out to the Multisensory Reading Center, get more information, watch some of the videos, click out to the website, start getting and looking in and checking this out, because this is for maybe, your child or maybe someone you run into, to let them know and kind of be there. It's a great resource that we have, that we love having, to be able to help the parents and the children, the kids that might have that struggling reading, or might be going through somewhere on the spectrum of the dyslexia and other things. But before we head out, before we go, I know we talked about a lot of things and how things work. Is there anything else that we might not be able to touch on that you might have been thinking about?
I was just thinking about just my relationships with the parents and students over the years, and how, I have cried with moms over the phone just in celebration, because, their student, they, were going to have to repeat a grade, or there was just so much struggle and turmoil, and it affects the entire family. Like it affects everything. You think it's just, this reading issue, but it grows and it just, turns into a monster. And there have been so many life-changing experiences and feedback that I've gotten from parents, where it's been, really just emotional and just a super positive experience. So I think just reflecting on that, I'm just really just encouraging parents out there who feel, maybe you've watched the videos on there and you're seeing a lot of consistencies. Really, there's no harm in just, talking to a certified academic language therapist about those struggles, just to see if we can change just, one student's life by giving you some more information. That's really what our passion is, and that's what we aim to do.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the tears, because I know. I mean, it does it. My youngest, he was thinking he was dumb and lazy and all these things. It was just so much negativity, and then he didn't want to do it. And then I'm thinking kind of the same thing. I'm like, what's going on? I didn't know, because he was so smart.
Right.
He's so smart. And I'm like, why is he not doing this anymore? And and then come to find out, there was a reason for it. And once we cracked that reason, once we got through that, it changed all kinds of things, for him. So yeah, anybody watching this, just start that process just to see if there's just anything. Watch those videos, because you do see those characteristics, coming through little bits and pieces. And if there's something there, if you have a question, reach out and start that process. It's definitely shouldn't be hidden, shouldn't be frowned upon, shouldn't be anything, because it's a common thing. It doesn't mean anything other than, to be able to start that process of therapy and going through this process. And, if their shoulder was hurt, you would get them physical therapy. It's the same type of thing. And I think sometimes when something's neurological, people are so scared about that thought, and so I love these conversations to break down the walls, those barriers a little bit, and let people know, just to reach out and start the process. So Amanda, I really appreciate, you and what you do, and the help that you are for the parents and the kids, and what you do there at the Multisensory Reading Center. And I just appreciate it. And I love, having this conversation, and hopefully, a parent will see this and jump in and get involved, and where they might not have ever thought about it, so I love having these conversations because you never know where they lead to. So
That's true.
but
Yep, we are happy to help.
all right. Well, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And everybody, check out all the links out to the exhibitor booth, to their website. There's a ton of information that they have on both. And just get involved. Get involved, start the process. But everybody, I appreciate you guys being a part of the Homeschool Connect Expo, and make sure you share this. And because you never know who might be out there struggling or having these struggles inside their family. Yeah, and they don't need to. There's help, and there's people like Amanda. And so, Amanda, appreciate it so much. You have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.